Howdy. I had to say howdy. The hat. It does things to me. You might have noticed we're in a different location. That's because our other location that we usually shoot is either currently on fire or is just wrapping up the fire. I think it was. I think in the next hour or so, the fire will probably be taken care of.
Probably.
Probably.
It once it runs out of fuel, I mean, what's it gonna do? Fire kind of needs air.
Yeah, I mean, we do take ourselves off the grid when we shoot this because we don't want to get phone calls from our parents. So we have no idea of checking if the fire's done or not. But that's not the concern. We are in Matt's apartment right now, and today's episode does tie into the outfits that we are wearing. We're not completely not unaware of what this is. So
I'm wearing this scarf, ironically.
irony makes everything more fun to commit to as opposed to actually committing to it. We're not talking about irony today.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this great game developer that I have been reading his work for quite a while. It goes by the name of David Sirlin, and you can go to his website sirlin.net. Still around. He even has a book out. The book is called Play to Win, and the article that a lot of people identify with David Sirlin is the same name. It's Playing to Win, and it served as an eye-opener for a lot of gamers because what it essentially explains to you is that anytime somebody is playing you in a game and they do something that you might consider to be cheap or unfair, even though the game allows it, if you disagree with that, that makes you a scrub. And a scrub, don't... Okay, I know people were thinking of that hip-hop song. I know I was. Maybe I just had to tell myself not to do it.
I have no idea what you're talking about, actually.
That's a relief. It actually is a relief.
No.
A scrub will never aspire to be a professional gamer or someone who plays a game to the level of skill that the game allows, because the scrub has this sense of honor and this refusal to accept the game can be played in a certain way. And a really basic example of this would be in, say, one of the 2D fighting games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and you're facing against Cable. And I know I used to play Cable a lot, and Cable has this range attack where he will swing his gun out and then shoot you. And he can actually win the game just by doing that if the other player doesn't adapt or doesn't counter it. So that to me is effective, but to the other person it might be perceived as cheap, and if that person thinks it's cheap, then he's a scrub. So initially, for a long time, for quite a few years, I had this distinction. There are the scrubs, and then there are the people who play games to win. And there is really nothing in between. I was never okay with that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound... Like, we're not pros, but we still have a handle on what the hell we're doing.
Yeah. And I don't want to make it sound like I disagree with David Sirlin, although you don't write an article like that and then not expect people to disagree with you. In fact, you write that hoping people disagree with you because it bears discussion.
Actually, if I may mimic somebody I follow online, oh my god, people on the internet may have misunderstood me. Okay, I'm done.
Was that Ego Raptor after you put out the Ocarina of Time video?
No, that was, they're webcomic artists, and they literally, one of their updates to Tumblr literally was a 2-panel thing of them in bed crying, hugging a pillow. Like, wow, people on the internet may have misunderstood me.
Oh, that's because you have no idea what these people are on the other side. I don't know how old you are. I don't know how angry you are at things, and you're taking it out on other people. It can get pretty deep. Pretty deep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this brings us to today's subject. This is something that I picked up on the Magic the Gathering website by the Magic the Gathering creators. They are Spike, Timmy, and Johnny.
The 3 most major archetypes. I think anything that is another type of gamer technically spawns or spirals from some variant on these things.
May actually be a combination.
Or may in fact be a combination.
Could be a combination. You may notice that I forgot the chalk at home, so we came up with a workaround, and I actually really like this look, so I think, I don't know, I feel like sticking to it. You're a Spike.
I'm a Spike.
What's a Spike?
A Spike is a vampire who apparently fought to get his soul back. Oh, no,
we agree not to do that.
Alright, so a Spike is somebody who takes a dead hard seriously. Back to the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 example, Iceman, when performing a particular special, falls at a certain speed. But I discovered I can cheat the game by canceling the special and going to something else that causes me to still use the special, but fall at a slower speed, maximizing the damage I do. I'm a person who finds all the ways the game can be broken and break it, because as long as it isn't banned in a tournament, it is perfectly legal. I play to win using every fucking tool in my repertoire, and I don't go out with women much because they betray me. The magic cards will never betray me.
I knew we were going to go in that direction. I'm sure some spikes meet lovely people.
Yes. I'm sure there are some women spikes out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Probably not as many as there are guy spikes.
Yeah.
Realistically, like
women tend to be a bit more balanced in that area. But anyways, I play to win and I use every tool I can.
What am I?
You are a Timmy.
I'm not a Timmy, I'm a Johnny.
You're the Johnny? Oh, right, they're in the different order. You are Johnny.
Okay, well, that just goes to show that rehearsal is important.
Yes.
I am not someone who particularly wants to break the game apart into pieces in order to win, although I do want to win and I do enjoy winning. But as a Johnny, games are also a way for me to express myself. I'm almost like an artist a little bit. If I'm going to win on my terms, because while I understand that when you break a game to its utmost breakability, you can obviously increase your chances of winning, to me it doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of the game to win that way. If I'm going to win, I want to win the way I determine it, and I'm probably going to lose a lot more, but I'm also going to learn a lot more, and I feel like I'm having a valuable experience. Now then, since I no longer have to wear this...
Yeah, this scarf's actually getting pretty itchy.
I was kind of hoping that you would change while I'm doing my spiel, so that way you would have been ready for the last person, and arguably what is the most, I think, the thing that I personally envy the most in gamers is the Timmy.
I'm a Timmy. I play games purely for fun, and yes, you can still play it for fun and to win, but I basically do what I want. It's a new meta because I say it's a new meta. It's how I want to do it because it seems like the most interesting idea in the world. I'm going to stack Null Talismans and the Blink Dagger on Nature's Prophet because I just feel like stacking Null Talismans and a Blink Dagger. I mean, if you're not enjoying yourself, what's the point? I mean, win, lose, that's kind of a side consequence. You can't win them all, so you might as well just enjoy the process.
Timmys know how to live lives.
Dangerously.
Alright, so you can take that off now. Okay, so why do we want to talk about this today? And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I want to encourage people to try to identify with one of these groups and to identify the people that you're playing with may be this kind of player, so that way you have a better idea of what's going to be involved in this game.
If they're yelling at you to do a specific build, they're probably a spike.
Now, to get the most out of this, I'm going to be mostly discussing Dota 2. I'm also going to be discussing Smash Brothers. League of Legends might get thrown in there. Magic the Gathering obviously will come up, because if not for Magic the Gathering, I wouldn't have had this terminology. Now, first things first, whatever. No, that's not the first thing. We got through the first things.
Yep.
We're on with the third thing now. Way to go, Joseph. Really knocked that one out of the park. You can not just, it's possible to not just be a Spike or Timmy or Johnny. It is possible to be a Spike Johnny, or a Johnny Timmy, or a Timmy Spike, which is a very strange combination IMO, but whatever.
It's also a delicious sandwich available at the drive-in diner down on DuPont, I believe.
There's a drive-in diner on DuPont and you haven't told me about it? What? Oh, I love drive-in diners.
We need to spend more off time with each other. I mean, I think we just drive each other's nuts on this show so often we just stop hanging out anymore.
We're like Abbott and Costello, for reference for everybody who's 25 and older. So I just don't want people to walk away thinking that you're absolutely positively going to be one. I personally, as a Johnny, really enjoy that label, because it's not like it wasn't true before I was told this. It's just, it was never a term that I feel like I would have thought that a game creator would have bestowed onto other people. So I am really glad that the Wizards of the Coast identify this kind of player base, and they actually do consider this when they are making cards. They want to think of cards that would uh, uh, help Spike with their gameplay, but also have cards that Johnny would appreciate, and have cards that Spike or that Timmy would really enjoy playing as well.
I'm pretty sure Infinite Mirror was not something a Spike would ever play, or a Johnny would, or a Timmy would ever come up with. That was definitely aimed at Johnny's.
Mm.
For those who don't know what Infinite Mirror is, basically speaking, you combine these couple of cards together, which allows you to summon 1,000 mirror tokens, as represented by this jar of sand. I got to do that once. That was so amazing.
Now, one of the issues that comes from playing Magic the Gathering in person. I don't play MTGO, and I'm not going to. For me, the point of getting into Magic the Gathering was to have somewhere to go and to play. I know this is going to sound very ironic, but Magic the Gathering is a social experience. You have to be playing with other people. And it's great because you and I actually became friends thanks to Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
We would not have met if not for playing Magic the Gathering.
Neither of us play it anymore, but
I still play it.
You still play it?
Sure, I still play it.
Oh, wow.
Now, I play a very specific form of Magic the Gathering, which is called Pauper Magic. For those of you who are not too familiar with Magic the Gathering, maybe you're familiar with card games, or the cards themselves have different rarities. There's like your basic, which are also referred to as commons. You have uncommons, and you have rares, and you have mythic rares. The form of Magic that I play does away from everything uncommon and up, so you can only play with the basic cards or the common cards. It's called Pauper Magic. It's quite interesting, and it actually suits my playstyle more as a Johnny because a lot of these broken cards are not allowed in this thing because they're rare, they're mythic rare. So the overall monetary value of the deck is actually lower than the monetary value of, say, my other typical deck, which is full of rares and uncommons and mythic rares.
But you probably could still find... There's probably still spikes among the Pauper crew, the people who have figured out what the common cards are to combine and, really break the game and find it. So, I mean, anyone can join that. It's just a matter of it's cheaper to do so.
And it's also a matter of, are the people that are dictating the terms to Pauper Magic interested in keeping the game closer to the playstyle that the Spikes do, or the playstyles that the Johnnies do, or the playstyles that the Timmys do? Because I for one, feel like if we're just going to try to break this as much as we break every other mode, it takes away from the point of doing this particular one. The only advantage that Pauper Magic will have over all the other forms is that Pauper Magic is dirt cheap to play, which is nice, but you can see that there is a disconnect between the three groups because you almost never see situations where the three groups can get along and play the same game. And I think it's the responsibility of the game creator to do their best to make sure that the game that you're playing, regardless of how casual the person is, can accommodate everyone when they all get together and they play. And in order for to do this, we have to accept that we're not going to be able to play the classic one-on-one best 2 out of 3 in Magic the Gathering, or in Smash Brothers do one-on-one Final Destination. That kind of stuff is reserved more to the competitive side or the Spikes.
Well, I don't always think we have to be kind of shoving the groups together. If everybody can enjoy it individually in their own categories, and that is a very versatile game. Like you brought up Smash Brothers. Like, you can play it in a 4-player, the stage is constantly rotating to the right, and is just as deadly as anybody on it kind of thing. And that can be fun. You can play it on a more stationary, eternal battlegrounds between, 4 or 3 people, and you'll be hitting it up. Or you can do one-on-one Final Destination. The game does kind of accommodate all those, so all the categories can enjoy it to whatever extent they want to.
And this is the reason why Smash Brothers is such a successful game design, is because if you are on the far casual end and you just want to have something to do when your friends are over, you have it. But if you want to play it very seriously, you have that too. And what's great is that I think the more casual the mode you're playing, the more the Spikes are going to have to sort of disengage that part of their brain that just tries to make everything as agonizing as possible for everybody else and actually play the game the way the game is intended to, which is to be party and fun and crazy.
Yeah. It's also funny because you talked about getting the groups together and having some kind of mechanic. Well, Brawl had tripping, which affects everybody equally.
Yeah.
Which I never met. I still don't... I've never witnessed tripping. I guess that's because my main character was Kirby, so I just spent way too much time in the air.
That's funny.
What?
No, it's just, you're right. That is one way to counter tripping. Is
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kirby. I don't have to walk. I choose not to walk.
Well, yeah, like, I can kind of see why they would put it in, just to add some random element to it that, say, a less high tier list character can use and capitalize. If you're playing, because usually the top tier characters are very aggressive, so they run around a lot and they attack a lot. So I can see tripping as being just some way to keep these guys in line a little bit. But the reason why the competitive community hated it so much is because it is a pure random element that just took away from the overall design of the game in that realm.
Not to mention, they really like spamming sort of the one-on-one Final Destination. I mean, if you...
Actually, sorry to cut you off. I'm only just saying this, but because I realize this, is that Final Destination, for a lot of players, isn't the most competitive map. Like Battlefield, the one with the three platforms? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that one, because of the platforms, you were jumping a lot, so that was another way to mitigate it. I mean, if you're trying to jump around on Final Destination, unless you have good air-to-ground ability, you might still be at the mercy of someone with superior ground-to-air ability. Yeah. On Eternal Battlegrounds, you've got a reason to be jumping. Good. And you can say, like, hi, I'm on this upper platform, you don't have good enough ground-to-air to hit me, so you're just going to have to come up to me.
Yeah. Okay, so what I want to do next is I want to go through each of the categories, and I want to point out positives and negatives to all three. So with the Timmys, the positive is that the Timmy is, I think, what the game creator, the kind of person that the game creator wants to know exists, because you want to know that people are just enjoying your game. And that if it's one challenge on the creator's part to see how this game is played at its most competitively, I think is an equal challenge to see how well can this game be played when everyone is either, not to say that the Timmys are terrible or bad players, but they don't make getting better at the game a priority. They just care about playing it. So that is something that developers need to look at, is that a Timmy can eventually turn into another kind of player. A Timmy can realize that whole play-to-win mentality and join the ranks of the Spikes, or the Timmy can become a big fan of the game and wants to, and really identify with a character like I do, and then focus on trying to master that character and be able to deal with different other kinds of players. The downside is that depending on the game, a Timmy is not the kind of person you want to have on your team. And this is bringing MOBAs in for an example. In a game like Dota 2, I'll admit that more often than not, I'm picking characters that I prefer to play over what I think is the most effective character. That's the Johnny side. I'm not doing this because I'm having fun. I'm doing this because this is the challenge that I want to face as a player. I want to face this game with this character, and obviously I want to win, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this. A Timmy would do the same thing, except that a Timmy would just pick a character and go off and do things. And in a game like Dota 2, you've essentially ruined the next hour for everyone else on your team because you are not taking it seriously at all.
Insta-lock Faceless Void and the complaint about not having two supports in lane to help you farm.
That would be a spike.
No, I'm pretty sure Timmys do that too.
It depends if the Timmy thinks he's just going to win, or if the Timmy just thinks that's the best character in the game and loves playing that character. So that's... But you know what? Maybe it's a Timmy spike. Could be.
Yeah, well, it just... MOBAs is a good example, but I think one of the big downsides, you might be saying this, but, you know, this occurs to me, so I'm going to say it anyways. One of the downsides to Timmys is I think they can get really discouraged. I mean, they're in it for the fun, and then they come across Johnnies and Spikes who have an idea of what works, but like what is the most efficient way to do it. Because in the end of the day, all video games are computer programs.
Sure.
All computer programs are inherently numbers. And all numbers can eventually be cracked down to efficiency. Now, what level you go at that is up to you, and obviously there's a random element that can screw things up. Keeping Dota 2 as an example, I've jungled as Doom, and I've gone and it's like, shit, this is a subpar camp to start with. I go to another one, this is another subpar camp, and I go to the third one, and at that point I've lost a lot of time because, I can't start this camp at level 1, can't start this camp level 1, can't start this camp level 1. So there's always going to be random elements that screw it up, but you're still going to have people out there who are doing it more efficiently, who have the more experience. So you'll have the Timmy running around beating things up in the jungle trying to farm up that shiny new sword, and then get smoke ganked by people who know this person is jungling. This person might be here. Let's grab Smoke of Deceit.
Yeah.
Let's, hunt the fucker down so he never snowballs in the late game.
Yeah, and Timmy doesn't... He's not trying to get into the mind of the other player. Timmy is probably very much kind of stuck in their own head. And so they are trying to just focus on their own thing. So they might go back to the jungle, not having learned a lesson from that last death, and that ends up happening again. But it's funny you brought up the way that games can be broken down into math. And it's not just video games. I mean, stuff like chess and Monopoly can also be broken down mathematically.
Oh, yeah.
There's the whole counting cards thing that comes from playing poker. What I noticed about, say, like when kids are playing soccer, you actually do see the Timmys and the Spikes there, because even though it's just, I'm bringing out my own childhood memories here, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that's seen or witnessed or been a part of this. You have 10 kids playing soccer together at recess time. Some of them aren't playing in house league. Like their parents haven't registered in to play in a group or something. So they're just like, they barely play soccer. They're just kicking the ball around. Then you have the other guy in your team that's like, what are you doing? You got go be a goalpost. Like and in that case, the Timmy can be discouraged from wanting to play, and that actually hurts socially, because now this Timmy had a chance to be friends with all these people.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll admit some of that is personal experience, but not all of it.
Well, I think when you think a lot about the Timmy, it really sounds like they're an initiate. They're someone who may have just gone into it. One of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to enjoy their time and then move on to another game, but if they stick around long enough, even without meaning to, they'll understand patterns, they'll recognize certain things, people are missing from the map, ergo, maybe I should move out of the jungle, maybe I should play a little careful. Like, practice makes perfect, and I feel like the Timmy thing is either they're here temporarily, then they move on to the next thing, or if they stick around long enough, they will eventually turn into a Johnny, because they will...
Or Spike.
Or Spike, because trial and error is the best teacher in the world.
Yeah.
You learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes, and every time you get ganked in the jungle, if you're awake and sober, you are probably going to try not to have that happen again, even if it's not this game. Next game, maybe you're just not going to go a jungler, then a couple games down the line, you're going to play someone who starts in the lane and just goes in the jungle and goes back to the lane. You will eventually get better. So I feel like Johnny is either incredibly fleeting in terms of a status, or at least incredibly fleeting in terms of a specific game.
Oh, you mean Timmy as a fleeting status?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It'll come up. We keep saying these names over and over again.
Yeah.
I would also say that I would expect the largest group of people playing my game to be the Timmys, because these are the people that I want to be fans. These are the people that I want to be drawing pictures of the characters, or making making animations for it. These are the people that I want to be watching other people on stream, or watching other tournaments. This is the largest group that I would want in my game, because you need there to be the average casual basic approach to the game kind of style player, because otherwise you're not highlighting the players who are good, who do dedicate their time to being more effective at this. And it's that presence of the Timmys that takes your game from something that has a niche appeal, like, say, Street Fighter. I know Street Fighter is popular, but it's not the same kind of popular in mainstream media as how League of Legends has nailed it in terms of worldwide popularity. Magic the Gathering, again, kind of niche, but also kind of popular. I mean, I think enough people play it, but... Well, I'm just going to reiterating that point over and over again, but you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, and Magic the Gathering is actually a fantastic example, because we've met very obvious examples of spikes.
Yeah.
I remember, like, the one
people
group...
who breathe with their mouth. By the way, there's a new South Park episode called Cock Magic.
I've heard of. I don't watch
it was
South
pretty
Park,
good.
though. But
it's worth watching.
I remember there was that one time where the 14-year-old kid came in and he had a deck that he claimed he made himself and apparently cost him $90. And like I looked up the 3-card combo or whatever the deck was dependent on, and there was like 5 variants of it online, one of which looked a hell of a lot like the one he played, so he clearly didn't come up with it. But
you could do benefit of the doubt. There is parallel thought, but
yeah. But he came in, bragging about here's this amazing deck he came up with, only cost $90, and it was essentially designed to kill you on turn 3. And the way he went about it was very straightforward and arrogant. I remember and then this, and then this, and your turn, your turn, your turn, and like he made comments like, and there's nothing you can do, and even like the last turn, it's like he said, okay, I'm done, and you're dead on your next turn.
Yeah. This
isn't making me feel good. Like I'm losing already, which I'm okay with losing. But this guy essentially is methodically rubbing it in my face as you clearly can't stand up to a turn 3 Windex. I call turn 3 Windex because that just is a nice way to demoralize them. And
we've essentially transitioned into the spike now, so let's just keep going with that.
Okay, but and at that point it's like this isn't like you're being very immature about this. Like you clearly like this deck was designed for. I have a turn 3 Win deck. You've seen it.
I have a turn 3 Win deck.
I keep it at home with several elastic bands over it, so it's very clear which one it is. And most of the times I go out, I leave it at home. I had it, and it worked 80% of the time. And I declared this just isn't fun for me anymore.
Yep.
Like, I don't feel like This deck was mostly assembled using someone else online. This was, it can win me 80% of my matches I use, but it stopped being interesting. And, with that kid who just said, you're dead next turn.
You weren't playing for money.
Yeah, I wasn't playing for money. And, with that kid who said you're dead next turn, it's like, okay, fine. Here, save to the trouble. Bye.
Yeah. So, what are the positives and the negatives to the spikes? Well, one positive to the spike is that, kind of on the one end of the spectrum, how good is your game casually? A spike will determine how good is your game competitively. What happens to your game when a player cares about nothing more than achieving victory through the most effective, efficient means possible. Hence, the metagame. Now, I think spikes are very necessary. Speaking as
spikes will break your game. If you are doing a beta or an alpha and there's some combination you haven't quite accounted for, a spike will find it. A spike will always look for a way to break your game. So if there is a flaw, they will find it. They will use it on the Timmys, and the Timmys will report it on the forums. Then you'll know to get rid of it.
What else was I gonna say? Sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought.
They make for better professional. Like if you want to, if you have a spectator thing like Dota 2, League of Legends, etc., spikes tend to make for very efficient, very fast matches because, like, occasionally it'll just be the spikes will sit down together and say, yeah, they kind of snowballed quickly. It's 20 minutes in. Let's just forfeit this and try to win the next round.
Yeah.
Which that can make for a disappointing match, but at the same time, it's they're not wasting anyone's time, including their own. I would like to say to whoever who was fighting in the Internationals Dota 2 against Newbie, those are the final matches. If that was me, I don't care losing. I'd fight tooth and nail to the bitter fucking end.
Yeah.
Like, put on a good show, or at the very least, go out in flame and glory.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with you on that one.
That was disappointing.
Just try. I mean, it's $5 million. They might make a mistake.
I mean, the previous year, the final matches were really fun to watch, and then this year, just really, you forfeit most of them.
Okay. Now, coming from a Johnny, we haven't moved into Johnny's, but coming from a Johnny, I find myself more in Smash Brothers than in Dota enjoying playing the other spikes, because I know that if I win, this win was deserved, and that I actually kind of shook him a little bit, because this guy was so sure that he was going to win. There is the tier list forming in Smash Brothers 4, and much to no one's surprise, it's packed full with a lot of the speedy, aggressive guys like Sonic, obviously, because he's speedy and aggressive. Fox is kind of up there. Yoshi's up there.
Fox is always going to be up there.
Marth is up there. Sheik is up there. Kind of fluctuates a little bit, but Greninja.
Why would anyone want Marth over Lucia?
I don't know.
Anyways.
Devotion to Marth. He has been in 3 Smashes now, so there's that. Like Lucina, she's in there as well.
That's actually
And so but then I come in with a Link, and Link is, if he's lucky, he'll be mid tier. Sometimes I lose, but sometimes I completely wipe the floor with them. And do they come back with that other character? No, they come back with either Little Mac because they are really mad, or they come back with another top tier character, and they keep trying, and they haven't they don't realize it yet, but they're not going to beat me if I already got into their head. If I can predict what they're doing, I can make up for a lot of the possible deficiencies in my character with my advantages as a player. Sorry, just coming back to the spike thing. What I think is the biggest problem with spikes is that they will prey on other players for self satisfaction. Like with your story, this kid obviously enjoys being able to beat other people, and I can't make an accusation, but I can suggest that there might be something going on with this guy.
I think we also remember he also claimed that he was an entrepreneur and had a whole, I forget, it's not gardening, it's some specific thing of gardening business, yada yada, and I just remember thinking, there's several entrepreneurs for that kind of thing in Toronto. There's not enough room for all of you. Mm-hmm. Like, I call your bluff. You're just citing something off a website you saw was interesting.
One of the first times I did Popper Magic, there was this guy who, to me, I wish I could have brought him on their show because he had the look of a spike down to a T. No offense, but he had this deck that was like a turn 3 win deck, but it wasn't like I can see what was happening. It was this exploit in a blue deck that would allow him to constantly bring this card out from a graveyard that forced me to mill my deck, which was to take cards from my library and put them into my graveyard.
Was that Delver of Secrets?
No, but Delver of Secrets comes up a lot, so he might have shown up in that one. I know Ghostly Flicker was a part of the combination. I actually did try to look it up, and I haven't been able to find the full combo, so I actually think this kid came up with it on his own.
It's possible.
It's possible. And it didn't... I never actually fought that deck again. Granted, I could go a little more often than I do. Sorry, Harry Tarantula. But what it did for me as a favor was it helped me keep in mind the severity of the matches that I might be getting into the next time I go there. I can build this deck, but I have to consider what happens if I come across this challenge. This is the hardest deck that I faced here. If I can beat this deck, at the very least, I'm going to stand a chance at some of the other decks, because some of the other decks might not win until 5 or 6. So I have more time, I have more options. So in that case, the spike did a terrific favor.
Well, it also comes down a bit to, again, attitude. The thing I complain about the spike I fought is that he, clearly enjoyed it. He clearly enjoyed the superiority. In fact, I like to say that younger kids make some of the biggest bullies in history. Like, I remember grade school, you'd have people in the younger grades would love to pick on the kids in the older grades, because if a fight broke out or something happened, the older kid was always the one who got punished.
It wasn't so much picking on as it was getting inside their head and trying to just get a reaction out of them.
They knew they could get away with it because they were the younger person involved. And if an older person hits a younger person, then the older person's the one in the wrong because they should have been more in control. I actually had one of these punks try to shove a stick into the spokes of my bike as I was biking past. Now, I was going at a high enough speed that they couldn't do that, but if they had succeeded, they could have caused me to go right off my bike and have an accident. Mm-hmm. And, I actually grabbed them, I shoved them against the wall and told them we weren't supposed to do that. And I had a teacher, talk to me afterwards, and I was known for being a calm person. I explained this, so I think I dodged that bullet, but I could have easily saw that situation going another way. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, if he had succeeded, I could have gone flying off. That could have been pretty severe. But, if you have, like you said, a spike who hears this deck, here's whatever, he smiles, he says good game at the end of it, like he actually is kind and maybe offers you a tip or so.
Sure.
That is helping bring people up. That's helping people say, like, hey, I get it. I was like you once. Here's some tips. Maybe you can get better. Maybe you can whatever. If you're going to extend a helping hand, then you can essentially spike all the hell you want, because you're going about it in a nice way. You're helping other people.
I mean, in a way, it is disrespectful when you play another player and you don't play your utmost best. You've earned the right as a player to show the other player how good you are. There's no shame here in being good at the game. You've invested the time, you developed the skill, you're good.
And I actually think that kind of attitude is the best thing Spikes can do, because Spikes need a challenge. They've obviously broken the game. They figured out the best way to do it, and they'll end up fighting a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, or like it'll just turn into a bit of a.
Or they'll just fight each other, and then it'll just be like the five of them all fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's really funny sometimes because the players will tend to already know if they're going to win or lose just based off the deck they're fighting. Like when the Spikes are being resistant to everybody else and they just want to have this contained community, well then like you
it
might
stagnates.
You might as well just, I don't know, sit around and read a book for all the competition you're having.
Yeah, okay, this is gonna sound like it's not an example, so it's gonna just take a little bit to build up to the comparison. But I used to play a game called Section 8, and towards the end, there weren't really that many people who played. There was the people who stuck around, and there was the people who basically it was on a Steam sale. Now, I was one of the people. I think it was me, Secret Reeve, Zeus, and Metaware. Like, those were we were the recognized name. Myself and Secret Reeve, we were known for sniping people a lot. Mm-hmm. So you could just, again, see Secret Reeve is on their team, to kind of stay out of the way because he's going to beat most people in a sniper duel who wasn't me. You'd see Metaware, and this guy was just somehow God. He could jetpack right through things, not get touched, blow things up. Like, it was a complete astounding mystery. I talked to him a lot. He's actually was a really nice guy. Had some really great life advice for me, actually. But like he was, again, he would know how to use momentum. He'd do all the things. And then there was Zeus, who somehow got up behind you with a shotgun. There's really no logical reason how, he just did. And we basically became the pillars of that game for the longest time. We were the recognized names. I was Sig 13, by the way. God, why did I put 13 in my name? That was I was young. But we pretty much were the only competition for each other. Mm-hmm. Like, myself and Secret Reeve being the dedicated snipers in the game, I would be on one team, or I'd join a game, I'd see he was on the other side. Well, this is going to be ridiculous because he's, popping heads. I'm going to go on the opposite team of him, and basically we're going to spend the whole game shooting each other because, our job is to keep the professional sniper on the other team occupied. You see a Zeus, that you're basically trying to stay out in the open as much as possible. Because that's his playstyle. He's somehow going to get up behind you with a shotgun. You're never going to see him coming. And you'd see Metaware, and it's pretty much just, even if you're on his team, you just stay the fuck out of his way. He knows what he's doing, you stay the fuck. And the fact that everyone just kept recognizing our names kind of turned into the whole thing of, who else is there? Like, who else is logging onto this game regularly enough and making a reputation for themselves? Like, this isn't a strong example, but I was also playing Unreal Tournament 2, and I was a dedicated sniper in that, and some people recognized me, some people didn't, and it just turned into, we're good, and we just recognize each other, and no one else kind of hits the radar, and it kind of makes it a little lonely. Especially when, me and Secret are just spending the whole time shooting each other. Like, can we get back to shooting the team, please? No, you take your sights off me, I will kill you.
That is pretty funny. Although, I don't know what Section 8 looked like, so I'm picturing the same thing, but with Team Fortress 2 and the two snipers on the other end. Oi!
Jetpacks. There were jetpacks in Section 8.
Oh, okay. Alright, so the other thing that I want to talk about with the Spikes is that there seems to be this idea that, especially when it comes to video games, that because you've been able to break it down to the point where the mechanics are kind of struggling to keep up with your own player inputs, and this is getting into Smash Bros. Melee a little bit, that's what was supposed to be the competitive edge of the game. There was an example that I used quite a while ago when we talked about the metagame, is that if the player base that accepts and allows and even regulates these kinds of play styles to the point where the game is no longer the same game that the casuals are playing, that the professionals are playing. If they were to do that for, say, a game of soccer, their logic would be, why don't I just get my hands and I pick up the ball and I throw it? I have hands, so why don't I just do that? And everybody else would be like, yeah, that makes sense. We should just make that a feature. So now you have a version of soccer where people are dedicating themselves to throwing the ball and then getting it with their feet.
Is that called basketball?
Well, no, because you have to sink it and you can't kick the ball in basketball. But the same thing, right?
Have you tried to kick a basketball? That's
not
chaos.
a great idea.
Yeah.
But then you have some other soccer players who come in who didn't know this, and they're facing off against the other team that is using their hands. Like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you using your hands? It's like, well, no one says we can't. It's like, oh, okay, well, you won, but you were doing something that we didn't even know we could do or that we were supposed to do. That's the difference. It's the difference between what you can do and what you're supposed to do. So, this is why the developers changed tack with Brawl and then changed it again a little bit more with Smash Bros. 4, is that they wanted to get away from the complicated advanced techniques that a player couldn't quite discover on their own without having to go on the internet and see how other people are doing it, because they're trying to make sure that the game is fair to all the fighters in it, and I think Smash Bros. 4 has succeeded in that regard. At least it's helped to kind of regulate a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the whole tier list thing, like, I actually like Greninja, but I spend most of my time in the for fun lobby, not the for glory lobby.
Mm-hmm.
And Greninja definitely was really much designed to be a one-on-one person. He's got a very short-range projectile, but it'll actually knock people back with multiple hits, so done correctly, that's a really annoying edge guard. Like, his whole thing is actually designed for taking on one other person. So I always have fun taking him into a 4-player match because he's technically suboptimal. He is best when handling one opponent at a time, but when I've got more than one person coming at me, I really feel like I'm being challenged. I really feel like I'm doing things really differently and really fun.
I can almost see you as a ninja trying to approach it from a ninja's perspective. It's like, I'm waiting for my chance to strike. I get in there, I hit a target, and then I get out, as a ninja I want to do. Yeah. Okay, so that thing that I'm talking about, I would want to go into that a little more in depth, maybe another episode. So I'm gonna stop that for now. But if you're interested in us talking about it, just in the comments, we'll do that. So I want to get last into the Johnnies. Now, I've stated that I'm Johnny, and I very much so enjoy being a Johnny.
I think I'm somewhat Johnny too.
Okay, so let's recap quickly, because we kind of haven't talked about it in a little bit. What is a Johnny? A Johnny wants to win, is okay with losing, but wants to win on his own terms.
The best way to really put it would actually be one of the Dota 2 loading screens, which this is a policy I had, or a philosophy I had before they put this in the Dota 2 loading screens. This is something that I think everyone in video games should accept. A good player, when losing a match, the first question they ask is, what could they have done differently? Mm-hmm. Sometimes the answer to that question is, they couldn't really have done something differently this person was feeding. But if the first question you ask is, what could I have done differently, you are far more likely to learn. It's not always your fault. Maybe there's going to be tons of matches out there where nothing you could have done would have changed the outcome. But first and foremost, learn, then start blaming the pugs.
Okay. I think that's good advice that would apply to all three of the groups, but I think that I can see why...
Spikes would just blame everyone else off the bat.
Yeah. Okay, so what does it mean when I play a game as a Johnny? Well, I've been playing for quite a long time, and usually what happens is that I dedicate myself to some sort of either rule or category or, I guess, faction, and I am more interested in trying to master one thing or a couple of things as opposed to only focusing on what is defined by the general player base as the best, or in this case what the Spikes would say is the best. So going through some examples. Team Fortress 2, I play Soldier and Medic. I can't do the other classes as well. Warcraft 3, I play Humans, or play the Alliance. I can kind of do the other three, not to the same level that I can do the Alliance. Uh, mm, if, for example, someone were to have told me that all this time the Alliance was on the low tier list and that everybody else was top tier and that you're an idiot for playing the Alliance, I wouldn't have cared. So one of the problems with this knowledge base is that it will affect you psychologically if you feel like everyone else thinks what you're playing is stupid, but you're Johnny. So you are spending more time with something that other people aren't spending time with. You are teaching yourself to play something that other people aren't teaching themselves to play. You have an advantage of knowledge. You have an advantage of experience. You have an advantage of being able to control things more because you are more in control of your character or of your race.
You're also not so arrogant that you believe there's nothing left to learn. I think that's another aspect of the spikes, in it that it's whatever they teach themselves or read off a blog or whatever is accepted as gospel. Johnnies tend to say, okay, I know there's a meta. I know what the meta is. I acknowledge the meta. I feel like this could be done differently. I feel like there's wiggle room here to slightly alter the style. Yeah. One of the weird things I remember seeing a lot of is, going back to Dota 2, Undying with Dagon. It doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's just one of these, you almost kill someone, peck them off with this last little nip here. And I don't see it a lot. I've seen it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think Spikes would be more dedicated to always my build, always not my build, where the Johnny is, maybe this makes sense this match, but wouldn't make sense this match.
Mm-hmm. What else is there for me? Well, in Smash Brothers, I've been playing Smash Brothers since the Nintendo 64, and I never got into it competitively, and I wish I got into it more competitively sooner. That said, my main character has always been Link, and I know that from the Nintendo 64, I'm like, oh, Link's in Smash Brothers. Holy crap, I gotta play this. But
that's what got a lot of people in the Soul Calibur too, I think.
Yeah. They really dropped the ball, by the way, and not putting them on Nintendo consoles. We probably still would have bought it. Nintendo fans can be very gracious. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, so and it was the same thing. If somebody told me that Link was a lower tier character, I'm like, okay.
Whatever. I've seen you dominate as Link. I've seen other people do really well as Link. I do really well as Kirby, and I've had a lot of people tell, oh, Kirby's the easiest character in the game to play. I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of
Yeah. Dota 2. It's much harder in that game to only play one character, but there are people who do it. There's one person that we faced off against quite a few months ago who has like 800 matches and only plays Invoker. There was a person that
in his defense, Invoker has a pretty high skill ceiling.
It has a good high skill ceiling. But me, most matches I go into it, I'm playing Lena, and what I've always admired about Dota 2 is that the flexibility of the roles allows me to put myself in a position where even if I'm not gaining a lot of gold, I can still do some useful things like dropping off vision, gathering everybody together for smokes, having the mana boots for mana restoration, having a mechanism. So I can still play a very supportive role and contribute to fights just based off my player skill and my positioning. If I were to pick her and want to be the most farmed character on the team, that might be a waste, depending on what the enemy team has. So I have to accept that I'm not always going to play the exact role that I want to do, but I know my character well enough that I can go to whatever role I can fit in.
I'm a lot different with Dota. I remember you asking hypothetically once, what if, in playing Dota 2, you can only ever play one character and never be able to play any other character. My response was, I find a different game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a top 1. I don't even have a top 3. I have a loose top 5, or at least a top... I came up with the top 5 just so I could shut people up and kept asking me that question, mostly. And, a lot of them are decently versatile. I mean, Abaddon is at the top of that. He makes for good support. I've off-carried as him as a lot, and, putting him just really tanky. And, hell, I've even hard-carried as him, just completely blasting everyone apart. There's Jakiro, who also makes fantastic support. He's one of the most durable casters in the game, and he really rewards skill shots. Like, the times I've hit blind-shotted Ice Path and hit people, it's like, yes, I can feel great about that. There really is there's a lot of versatility there that, like, okay, so just to shoot them off, Abaddon, Jakiro, Tusk, Tree and Protector, Vengeful Spirit. There's a lot of versatility there. I can do any role I want with those. I don't quite think there's a hard carry really specifically on there, but all of them have potential to do large number of things in any kind of fight. And Yelena is, as you said, a very versatile character. She can fill multiple roles, and I actually enjoy the sense of adapting. I enjoy, again, playing Jakiro, realizing that, hey, we're ahead, and this other guy's buying wards for me. Maybe I can buy this item that makes me hurt more and, start doing a little bit more in team fights. Or I'm playing Abaddon and I'm not doing so well. Maybe I should swap out, build the mechanism and get the wards for a bit because, I'm getting focused down. So, buy the items that have cheap components. There really is a sense, and especially with the top 5, there's a sense of adapting, and I play how I want, but how I want is to complement and fit in with this team very well. I don't lock in as Juggernaut and say, you must now all support me. You must now all, support the Juggernaut.
Yeah, I mean, every now and then somebody will lock in and, like, okay, this guy is the real deal. We're going to get this guy to win this match for us. Yeah. So, especially in ranked play, I'm totally okay with that. But you don't always know that off the top of the match.
Yeah.
So one of the it's hard for me to find criticism of being a Gianni, but I am one. One thing I will admit is that, especially in a team-based setting, I can be very selfish. Like, if I'll pick a character that I want to play, and even though I will adapt my character, the fact that I pick this character means that I put myself over a little bit more instead of the team, which is why. Like, I've opened up that topic with a lot of the regulars that I play with. They're like, guys, I really enjoy playing Lena. If you guys aren't cool with it, say something. And I was like, no, it's cool, keep playing. I'm like, really? Oh, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So so that helps me sort of overcome that fear. And I will also say, guys, if we're coming up with the team composition and I need to play a specific hero for this, I'll do it. It's not a problem. Mm-hmm. But I'm at a point now where I have other things to do. I would love to continue playing games at a tournament level setting, but my idea of a tournament is probably going to be going to, like, a local tournament in the city somewhere, coming out on top of that and calling it a day. And maybe somebody would say, like, oh, you're really good, come play for us. I'm like, okay, I can do that, but that's
not something you're adamantly sinking.
Yeah, and at that point, again, I think everyone who is playing even competitively is playing for the love of the game. Obviously, making the money is great, but the money is there to facilitate the gameplay, and that's one of the things that I love about the gaming community. And that one thing that we should be proud of is that we are doing this because we love it. That's something that we can say makes us even with people who play sports, But if I'm not being drafted onto a team based off the characters that I play, I'm not gonna do it. Like, guys, you want me to play Shadow Shaman this entire time? That's not why I play this game. I'm sorry, but this isn't gonna work out for me. I'm gone.
No.
And and if that means I'm missing out on an opportunity, then so be it. But you have to understand why Johnnies are doing this, and I'm hoping that people who are maybe identifying with the Johnny will take away from this is that I am not a mathematical genius. I don't break things down into pure numbers. I am an artist. I see things as a combination of the mechanical aspect, but I also see the intention and the sort of the soul of the person that went into making this. They want it to look like this, and they want it to play like this, and you end up with a game that looks like this. So for me, playing the character is a form of self-expression. So when I play Link, part of it is that I'm identifying with this character, and that to me gives me the advantage because I understand this character fundamentally better than other people who are just looking at him from his mathematical advantages and disadvantages. And this is the same thing with the Dota characters. I notice that when I play Silencer, I'm playing him a lot like I'm playing my brother, which is I will shut people up and I will hurt people over and over again if they try to do anything. When I'm playing Witch Doctor, I'm actually playing it a lot like my dad. I don't care how far in you go. I will come after you and I will rescue the shit out of you if you're in trouble because I'm your witch doctor. I will pull you out of this. And when I'm playing Lena, I'm playing my mom. I'm like, I'm looking after everyone. But if you fuck up with one of my kids, you will pay for that. I will kill you if you do that. So I get more out of it because I feel like I'm putting myself into it a little bit more. And I think a lot of people are either afraid to do that or they feel like people would make fun of them for doing that. And yeah, people are going to make fun of me for doing that. People are going to make fun of people for doing anything. But
people are unreasonable.
Absolutely unreasonable.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the thing that I enjoy the most is that when a patch note comes out and I find out that a character has either been buffed or nerfed, it doesn't bother me. It just means I have to readjust my playstyle and I keep going. If I find out that any of my characters are weaker now, I'm like, okay, so they made them weaker. There's probably a reason why they did that. So how does this change the way I play this character? As a Johnny, I trust developers more than I do other players. I trust when a developer makes a call, they know what they're doing. And if they patch it, it's because they're trying to make the game better, not worse.
That is a bit of a slippery slope. I know I've seen lots of examples, I'm sure you've seen lots of examples of basically players are unwilling to adapt to, understand, or accommodate a particular aspect of a game, and thus whine,
yeah.
and thus again the developers say, okay, we'll nerf this character.
There is some pressure there, yeah.
I mean, I remember when Abaddon first came out, everyone kept saying this guy's broken, this guy's whatever, he's not supposed to be out yet. It took a while to grasp the concept of when his ultimate triggers and you hear that doom and he starts glowing, you stop attacking him. Yes. And it's like serious. Like I remember one time I went into a fight and that triggered and another Lena came in, she just light strike right at me. He's like, wow, I'm up to full.
I think you mean to say Laguna bladed him back to full health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laguna Blade's like, wow, thank you. Like,
yeah.
I'm good for another round. Let's go.
Yeah.
It wasn't broken. It's just it was a thing that people had to adjust to. Like Zeus is someone that everyone complains about. Like, oh, he activates it and attacks the entire map at once. Well, that just means you play differently. You accommodate the fact that you can do this, and you understand. Spirit Breaker Engine can charge anywhere on the map. Keep an eye on your health. Understand that any team fight can have him coming out of nowhere if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's, like I guess
don't stand next to a cliff. Stand in sort of the center so you have time to see him coming and you can react to it.
Are you charging their bottom lane and there's a whole ton of trees around? They have tree and protector on their team?
Yeah.
You might want to treat every potential tree as either a ward or they're all invisible hiding next to. It's like, I guess when we go back to the Dota 2 League of Legends example, I feel like League of Legends did a lot to just say, okay, everyone's whining about this, let's adjust it, let's nerf it and get everything. I believe one person said taking turns kids mode. That was the comparison for League of Legends. Kids mode. Where Dota 2 seems to understand, you know what? Zeus hits the whole fucking map at once with the push of one button.
Deal with it.
Used to it.
Yeah.
And I think that encourages better play because, this is an aspect of the character we have to get used to. We have to understand.
Yeah. You have to make your characters feel powerful. And when you nerf a character's power, it sends a message that people don't want you to play this hero anymore. Like like I was saying, if my character got nerfed, I would adapt to it because I love the character. And this is the something that I would like to see more in game designers, that I feel like the opinion of the Johnnies aren't being recognized as much as these Timmys who are completely discouraged and the Spikes who are just complaining about things at the most efficient level. But because Johnnies are trying to find that balance between the joyful side and the competitive side, we see more of the mesh between the character's aesthetics and the design of the character, as well as the mechanical aspect to it too. So when it comes to, say, if I were in charge of balancing Dota, I would look at the top tier heroes and see why they're top tier, and then give other heroes more power so that they become as useful. A great example of this was Tinker, who would just teleport all around the map, rearm, refresh, get back into it, do it over and over and over again, and he was so good at doing that they had to nerf him, and now you don't see him at all, or you only see the dedicated Tinker players showing up.
What was the specific nerf on that again?
One of the things that he couldn't do was his March in the Machines could no longer damage Ancients, so that he couldn't farm up his items as easily. So he can still do everything that he could do. He did it slower, and it's not a bad way to balance him.
Huh.
But taking that power away, it seems like the easier way out than looking at other characters that could be elevated to that level of game impact and then adding them into the mix. Because a lot of people are saying that Dota 2 would become boring if it were perfectly balanced. And I'm like, no, it wouldn't be perfectly balanced. It would actually be a renaissance of Dota 2, because now every character is viable. That means that every possible combination is viable. That means there are now thousands of combinations of heroes.
Infinite possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, chess has been around for such a long time, and all of the ways to play have been discovered for the most part, but you still have to learn all of that if you want to be a chess master. You still need to adapt to things in the middle of a match if you're a chess master. You still need to know what the other player is going to do, try to predict his moves 2 moves ahead of time, 3 moves ahead of time. The master has to do that. Believe me, it will still be interesting.
Yeah, unless you deal with people who insist, like, oh, well, never. My grandfather and I played chess. We say the pawns can't take anyone out until they've moved. Really? Because I've never heard that rule before. Oh, well, let's play with it anyways. Oh, look, I won. I have a feeling this was a little skewed.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think the best way to have fixed Tinker would simply to have said, rearm doesn't work on Blink Dagger.
Or I would have given rearm a cooldown so that he can still do everything, but he has to stop at a certain point.
Well, then it's not really rearm, is it?
Because he's rearming everything else.
Oh.
And then you have to wait for the rearm, and you could get a refresher orb, and that would actually do it, but that would force him to take longer before he can start doing the efficient things. So that would slow him down, which would make him more balanced, in my opinion. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's lots of things that they've hit here and there. There's lots of buffs. I frankly think one of the best things they did was with Tusk when they split his snowball up. Like, you can hammer the button twice and still go off as fast as you used to, but now you can actually say, everybody, I'm going to snowball, goes into snowball, everybody jumps inside him, and he's now a living Blink Dagger complete with stun.
Yeah.
And that is something that why aren't pro people doing this? This sounds like the best idea ever.
Alright, we have hit the hour point, so
yes.
I've said everything that I want to say. I want to thank everyone for listening, for watching.
I think we had a decent number of Dota 2 examples for this. I think it's good when we got a lot of examples that we can talk about in the same game. But yeah, I think this was good.
Okay.
And I hope we never have to wear those hats again.
Well, I don't know about the cowboy hat. Okay, no, I'm not going to wear the cowboy hat. I am going to go turn this camera off. We don't usually do the hi YouTube thing, which I guess we should do because we are on YouTube. So if you have anything you want to say, you can say it in the comment section.
Because we've actually turned on the comment section, a decision that I'm sure we're going to regret one day. But hey, live and learn. The best teacher is failure.